Hello everyone. In this video, I'm discussing something that is quite controversial, or what I'm going to say is that historians have a hard time exactly understanding what actually happened. I'm going to give you 3 reasons why Elizabeth I never married. It comes from my own research, obviously. I've been working on Elizabeth I for over 15 years. The first time I started working and researching on her was during my master degree. I wrote 2 dissertations for my master degree because in France it's 2 years. So during my first year, I looked at Elizabeth's representations. Obviously, I dived into, the representation of motherhood, but also dived into the single queen, right? Like the single monarch. In my second dissertation, so my second year, which was 30,000 words. So the first one, 15,000 words. This one was 30,000 words. I looked into her own words. I looked into her speeches, her prayers, her letters. And here, like a real, new facets of the Queen really emerged from that research. That then I ended up publishing academically in edited collections, chapters, articles. So that's what I've been doing. And for me, when it comes down to Elizabeth I not marrying, it comes down to 3 simple, or not really simple, but to 3 reasons. And so I wanted to share with you these reasons. Often we talk about the fact that Elizabeth, probably didn't want to get married because her father had been so awful to her mother, had been so awful to Catherine Howard. Probably she didn't have, strong relationships, stable, healthy. If you think about Catherine Parr and Thomas Seymour, that probably was not the healthiest relationship of all. She also saw, her sister. So there's a myth, though, that we have to debunk, is that obviously Mary I was married to Philip. There was a strong friendship. There was a strong even relationship. We know now, thanks to the work of new and talented, amazing scholars, but also thanks to Valérie Chautet, who is an expert on Mary I, we have more and more research that shows that actually Philip II liked his wife, liked Mary I, didn't treat her appallingly. Now, because of their roles, their titles, she was Queen Regnant of England. She was not just a mere Queen Consort. So she was not expected to come to Spain. They were ruling an empire together. And maybe that's a video I should make and invite one of these experts on my channel to discuss this with you. Because I think it's something that we really need to understand, even to understand Elizabeth's relationship and where she approached marriage. I think it's a very important one. But here, just to finish on this, there were this strong partnership between Mary I and Philip II. There were probably a lot of affection, mostly also because they were from the same family. Let's not, forget about this. I do not believe that Mary I was Philip II's, love of his life. We know, and the way he was so devoted and so in love with Elizabeth of Valois, his second wife, shows that obviously Mary I was not that type of love, not that type of relationship. And it's true that because she was Queen Regnant, he was king in his own right, obviously. They had to rule 2 different countries, so it meant that they didn't spend that much time together. And so here we could feel, we could say, oh my God, it's like he's abandoning her, and that somehow it would have impacted Elizabeth. All right, I'm not saying that this reason, like the fact that she's never had a strong example of a healthy marriage, I don't think that's one of the reasons why in the end she never married. And I think there's some complexity around it. So the first reason for me, and what's very clear in her writing, and also very complex as well, is that Elizabeth had struggled to get to power. It was never handed to her. It was almost like, oh my God, I can't believe it's happening to me. And so when she got to power, it gave her a sense of safety, of security, which is probably debatable. But the truth is, it's how she felt. She felt like she was secure. She felt like she was safe. And that's because she was queen in her own right. That's because for the first time in her life, she really didn't have to answer to anybody. Not Catherine Parr, not her father, not her brother, not her sister. No one. So that was quite freeing. What's very interesting as well is that we don't have just one statement from an ambassador saying in 1559 that Elizabeth will not marry. The Spanish ambassador said that. And that he wrote to Philip II of Spain because Philip II had offered, to marry her. And he's saying that woman doesn't seem to want to be anywhere interested in marriage. And the second statement we have is from Noailles. So Noailles is the French ambassador who's saying as well, she told me clearly she didn't want to marry anyone. And it was such a very shocking statement that people in many ways didn't believe her. And I think what we tend to forget as well is that we forget that type of security gave her power. So she loved power. She really embraced power. And for her, the moment she would marry someone, she would have to share that power. But not in a way, I feel like people just see her as this ambitious, quite crazy woman. But it's actually more, it's deeper than that. It's the fact that by sharing that power, she's putting herself, again, in the hands of someone else. She can't be her own mistress. She can't be her own master. So that's something that is really troubling her. That's something that I believe the fact that she didn't want to share power is one of the driving reasons of why she'll never really end up marrying anyone. Now, in the course of her life, she's gonna, I don't think she pretends. I think, yeah, of course, she plays diplomatic games, but I think there's two other reasons that are very important for Elizabeth. The second one, and she said it clearly in a parliament, so she said in the speech of 1566, where she said basically, the only reason she would marry is to give birth, is to have an heir from her own. And here she said two very interesting things. The first one is that in her mind, marriage equal birth. So it's the only reason why you get married. It's your children. Otherwise, there's no interest. What would you? A second thing she said, and people dismiss it, she basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's not because I'll have an heir that heir coming from me is automatically good for the people, good for England. That is crazy. Because here she's touching upon a little bit the idea that, the way it works, the monarchy works, the fact that it's, it has to be related to the king. Usually it comes from, the king, the son. And here she's saying, it's not because he comes from me that he's going to be good for England. So what's the alternative, Elizabeth? Are you saying that you should choose someone? That's very, very interesting. And so giving birth also is something that is very dangerous, and she's very aware of this. So when we talk about she saw her father killing her mother, her cousin, it's not just that. Jean Seymour died in childbirth. Catherine Parr died in childbirth. And that must have also made her very aware of how fragile she was, or vulnerable she could be in that moment. That childbirth is dangerous. Childbirth is not just an easy, everyone is like, oh, it's so natural and stuff. Nowadays, the reason why we are safe is because we have hospital, we have emergency procedures. But back then in the 16th century, it was not that easy. And lots of women lost their lives by giving birth. Obviously, lots of women didn't as well, but lots of women did. And it was a bigger risk than it is today. It was a bigger decision to make. Did you really want to risk your life just to give birth to someone else? Like, it was something, especially for her in her mind, like, with everything we've discussed before, the fact that she, the fact that she felt secure and safe as queen regnant, the fact, that in a way she enjoyed power. Would it be worth it to lose it all? So that was something that I think really impacted her. Now, the third reason with Elizabeth that we can't dismiss, and we really never talk about it enough, is the fact that Elizabeth, and she said it many times, she didn't say it once, she said it many, many times, repeatedly, to different people, in different ways, but she's always said, I want to be married for the woman I am, not the queen. She didn't like the idea of a dynastic marriage, of an arranged marriage. She didn't like the fact that someone would just want to marry her because she was Queen of England. She wanted someone who wanted to marry her because she was Elizabeth. And in many ways, so there's a report for me that I saw striking into like her vulnerability as a woman, her sincerity about it, is when it's 1571, she's celebrating the opening of the exchange, and she's with de la Motte-Fénelon, like Bertrand Salignac de la Motte-Fénelon, a French ambassador that she spent lots of time with, and that she shared some of her private thoughts. And that night, when she asked him to stay with her for dinner, for the after party, and they ended up being alone together, we know that because he wrote everything. And he's discussing again, obviously, all he has in his mind is to conclude a marriage between her and a French prince. And she said to him, like, she's so vulnerable, and she said, I want to be loved for the woman I am. And she basically said, like, it's her greatest fear, that she never experienced that love for herself, for who she was. It's so modern when you really think about it. I just love it because it makes, you have all her humanity in that letter, all her worries as a woman, no longer as a queen, doing the right thing for her country, doing the right thing for her dynasty. It's about her. Basically she's saying, I deserve love. It's so powerful and empowering. And also, when you read that letter, so obviously it comes from La Motte-Fénelon, but you feel that kind of closeness between them where she feels safe enough to share this. And obviously he is going to tell, like, I think he liked her in many ways as a person. I mean, maybe he had romantic feelings for her, who knows? I don't think so, but he said, like, well, of course, any man who has you, who's with you, will love you for you, like you. And I don't think he just said it in a way to make a diplomatic point, because anyway, there was no point of, like, he would not gain anything by saying that if he didn't mean it. But she said it again later on. She said it to Anjou later on, like the Duke of Anjou, Francis, and he tried to reassure her that he really liked her. I do believe that he liked her, not in a romantic way, but I think they did get on. I think they were, they had a good relationship, they had a good friendship. But she kept saying it, like, that this need of being loved for who she was is the third big reason of why Elizabeth I never married. Let me know in the comments what you think, why you think she never married. But for me, with my 15 years of research, knowing her letters like I know her letters, knowing like her writings like I know her writings, her poems, her prayers, but like I'm talking about private prayers, that's really it. That it comes down to these three reasons: power and security, the fear of dying in childbirth, so for what, you know what I mean, like in her head, and the vulnerability of needing to be loved as a woman and not as a queen. I really hope that you enjoyed that video. Let me know in the comments what you think. I cannot wait to hear from you, and thank you so much for being here. Bye.